Good afternoon, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and we want to introduce you to Meter. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about Meter and what they do differently. But to help me do that, we've got Dimi. Hi, Dimi, how are you?
Good afternoon, Lee, and thanks for having me here.
Okay, so we're going to talk about all things Meter in a little while, but maybe good to get a quick introduction to yourself, a little bit of career history, and how long you've been at Meter.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been at Meter for a good old 8 months, which in early startup is actually a lot of time. Network technologist since I kind of graduated. So been around in both the service provider and then vendor environments, companies such as Cisco and VMware. And over the last 5 years, I took a small detour where I worked for Verkada. I know you do a lot of stuff with them. This is how we kind of met and got introduced. I was there and I built their consultant team out of the London office that covered EMEA. And yeah, now again, back up early startup and trying to do the same thing with Meter.
Okay, so let's talk about really the problems and things. So a lot of people see network as being there. It's always there. Every now and again, they may change some of their equipment. But what are the real problems we face with networking, especially in medium to large organizations?
That's a great question. And again, if anybody's watching here and they have no problems with the networks, they're happy with how it's working and the price of maintaining it, great. I mean, please save yourself 15 minutes and watch something else. But I guess if not, stay because there are a few interesting things that I really wanted to discuss. One of the main things that pops up is the lack of innovation. About 10, 12 years ago, I was lucky enough to be part of that cloud adoption where we moved away from command line and operating devices one by one by, telnetting into them. And it was a revolution. I remember people telling me about how nobody's trusting the cloud, it's never going to work, nobody's paying licenses for the devices, everybody needs all the buttons and all the reports. And nowadays, I look and pretty much all the vendors have a cloud platform that they're actively pushing. So kind of looking in the last few years, okay, speeds and feeds have substantially improved. But in all fairness, looking at the landscape, everybody's talking about the same things over and over again, meaning that for a actual customer or even an integrator like yourself, networks become a commodity. So the only thing that's separating vendor X from vendor Y is the price point, who can actually get a network equipment as cheap as possible. Secondly,
not the way you can judge technology, is it just on price? There needs to be other metrics that you can utilize. So that causes lots of problems, and it also makes it difficult for people like ourselves because all it is a race to the bottom on price, isn't it? Each time with that technology.
Yeah, and I understand when there's no other differentiator, it's just normal that it becomes commoditized. So one of the missions that we have here at Meter is to make networking cool again. And also when it comes from engineers, we see lots of job openings in the network engineering space. However, we actually see a lot of professionals retiring or close to retirement. So there's going to be a massive skills gap in running this critical infrastructure that I think maybe a lot of people don't really understand. They spend a lot of time and effort into the actual end devices and the apps that they're using, but they kind of don't realize that the network in itself is kind of the critical backbone, right? It's the blood supply of the whole system, without which the organs are not working properly.
Yeah, and I've seen that working with customers where you go in there and you'd speak to one of their guys on the IT side and say, "Can you create us a VLAN across these switches?" And they haven't got a clue. They don't know how to do it. It's always going to be someone else. So they've got maybe one person in the organization who can do it, or it's all outsourced these days. So it's becoming a challenge to look after your own infrastructure because of that skills gap.
And also the fact that even today, a lot of people do mix and match vendors. So you might have one Wi-Fi vendor, something for the switching, something for the security. And the problem with that setup, right, is that you have to maintain skills in all those areas. And, these devices, sure, in theory, they integrate with each other. However, in reality, there are loads of issues that crop up, and you as a customer are actually left to figure it out, because again, it's your responsibility to integrate everything together.
Yeah, because sometimes it's that integration point where you have the failure, isn't it? Because one piece of firmware has been updated on one device and it's looking at things slightly different to the other device, and that's where you get these challenges. And again, then you've got a fight between the two vendors to get it fixed.
Yes, not a fun place to be.
No.
Nice.
So tell us a bit more about Meter itself then. So how long have Meter been around? Where did this start? What are they looking to achieve?
So Meter actually, it's over a 10-year-old company. I know I mentioned startup and early startup, and that's because our founders, Anil and Sunil, spend a lot of time on their own trying to figure out the best way to deliver this full stack, and on their mission as network as a whole, as almost like a utility play. And it's actually just in the last couple of years that they went to market. They obviously opened up a sales floor inside our San Francisco office, and we already have a significant amount of US customers with actual offices in the UK and EMEA. However, we are very, very new here. So as I mentioned before, I was one of the first guys on the ground about eight months ago, and that's probably one of the reasons why people don't not know at the moment what Meter is. So there's a lot of care that's been done. I mentioned full stack. That's actually one of the most important things, because we're trying to really move away from having all those vendors in your environment that do not operate well together. So we have our own access points, our own switches for both access and distribution, and also our set of firewalls that can protect any organization when it comes to threats, and can obviously connect multiple sites or remote workers together.
Yeah, and you also go down to power management as well. So you've got PDUs that can be remotely controlled as well, because sometimes that's a challenge when you've lost access to something. You can't refire it up because of somebody there to actually pull the plug and plug it back in. But if you've got management over PDUs, that makes a big difference as well.
It kind of makes that did you turn it on and off again possible remotely as well, and that's a great point, because we're actively trying to take everything under our control, because I guess the main difference between Meter and all the other vendors out there is that what we offer is the working network as a whole. So we are trying to move away from offering pieces of hardware and licenses, and come back a few years later when those licenses expire and you lose access to everything, right? To a model in which our incentives are aligned, right? So our incentives are aligned with the end customers, because it's just like a regular contract, right? You sign a contract, there's actually no upfront cost with Meter because we own the hardware. And at any point in the contract's lifetime, if we fail to maintain the SLAs that we promised, you as a customer can actually break the contract away. And that's it's actually a very interesting thing, because I had somebody asking me just the other week, what is their risk in adopting Meter, which is obviously a fair question, knowing that we're new to the market. And thinking about it, I thought, well, actually, there's always a risk adopting anything, even if they have a big name. With the only difference is that obviously with other vendors, you have to fork out a large amount of money and be stuck with something that you have to make work. While with Meter, there is again no upfront cost, and if at any point you need to move away because you don't offer what we promised, you'll be able to just break the contract and then just kind of go back to how you used to do things.
Yeah, and the model gives you some other advantages as well, because if you're saying it's the alignment is based on outcome, so the performance of the network, availability, and things like that in the SLAs, that's aligned with what the customer's trying to achieve as well. So working together is quite different. You're actually trying to support each other in that. Whereas with the traditional vendor, it's, when can we recycle this kit to get some more revenue out of the customer? So they're looking to try and upgrade you on a regular basis to make money out of you, which is quite different with the model that you're offering.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, when I first came across Meter, probably a year and a half ago, I was quite surprised on how that is possible. The way that Meter bills is per square foot or square meter, and I can also tell you about what meter stands for as a name. But obviously in the US, we do bill per square feet, and also in the UK, but in Europe, we use square meters. And it's actually quite interesting because if you have two buildings that have the same surface,
I do
then
apologise. I normally silence my phone before I start, but for some reason I'd forgotten to silence my phone today. So
I'm sure you have some customers
nothing like
that are
a
eager to.
live interruption.
They
It's a
are
ring doorbell going and a parcel being delivered.
Well, I'm sure that I have a few people who need your help, so I'll
I'm sure.
keep this short.
So
So
tell us about the advantages of that meter model
mm,
then, and what's different about it.
I think for once, cost predictability. There's a lot of hidden costs when it comes to networking, especially throughout the life cycle. When it comes to you replacing it or you realizing that you need certain things and actually wasn't part of the initial offering. Um, the way meter works is that we give you a quote per the surface that you have, and then we work alongside you to design the network that you require for that particular space, looking at all the wireless clients you need, all the switch ports you need, what throughput you have from the firewalls. So actually, let's say a customer has two identical office spaces, they get the same pricing for both, but maybe one has double the access point size because on a regular basis they see double the footfall. And I was talking to a customer just the other week. They are actually buying private schools and they're starting to run them. So one of the things that they never know is what kind of network they have there, and if they actually need to come up with a lot of money to upgrade all that infrastructure. While with meter, they already know based on a floor plan what surface they have to cover, and they know exactly at any point what they can get. So that's actually one of the good parts, is that, let's say in life your network grows and changes, it's all included in the price. Good example, because obviously we both know Verkada, you have a new requirement to install 20 CCTV cameras. With a traditional networking vendor, if you don't have those ports, you have to go and buy yourself a switch and configure it. While with meter, if you don't obviously change the surface, you don't expand geographically, that's all covered. So all you need to do is contact meter, and not only we will supply a switch, we'll also configure it and help you set it up as well. Same for the firewalls. Our basic firewall does around 10 to 20 gigs, and obviously that's a lot for most of our customers. But further down the line, let's say you have a spike of traffic and you actually need to go and get 25 gig links. We have a bigger firewall, so again, all you need to do is contact us, and free of charge we'll actually give you a better firewall, because again, what we offer is that working network as opposed to a piece of hardware as well. So that's and that also works for technology upgrades as well. So usually
that's
it's
say, because I remember your founder talking about the upgrade process, and it's actually in both the customers and meters' interest to actually upgrade hardware and firmware as you go along, because if everything's on the same level of firmware, the development and dealing with support issues is much simpler, isn't it?
Yes, we don't want to be in a position where we have hundreds of types of hardware, because again, for us, it's going to be very difficult to patch them and offer upgrades. Our SKUs are actually very, very simple. I think we have about like 8 or 9 devices today, which is quite impressive compared to other vendors that you need a whole catalog. Again, we don't really sell on features and you pay more, but you have this thing, and you pay more and you have that one, right? We don't need so. And part of that is the idea that as things progress, you'll be able to benefit from new technology, and especially for Wi-Fi, because you take our switches, you take our firewalls, they're very, very beefy. So I don't see the need for you to change them anytime soon, which nobody wants to change that anyways, right? But when it comes to Wi-Fi, right, let's say now we're introducing Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 8 is probably going to come in a few years' time. Every single meter customer that has a contract will be able to get that upgrade free of charge, as obviously they onboard their end devices as well. And basically the network grows and gets better over time, not just from a software perspective, but also from a hardware one as well.
Okay. Well, you mentioned about the meter name. So what does meter really stand for, rather than just being an area of space?
So that's my confusion as an European, because I thought meter, square meter, right? But then I kind of realized that Americans don't obviously use that as a measurement. The meter name actually comes from the utility play that we have, as in gas and electricity meter. It's one
Ah,
of the core. It's
yeah.
one of the core ideas that we have, that in the same way that when you move in a premise, all you need to do is, call an electricity and a gas supplier, you sign a contract, and then things just work. We actually envision networks to be the same, because for us it's possible, right? We own the kit, so we have lots of customers who lease their premises, and when new tenants come in, all that the tenants have to do is get in contact with meter and just have the internet
Over.
being turned on, pretty much like a utility, which is something that obviously is not available with a traditional vendor, where you have to own the infrastructure.
Okay. So we've discussed in the past operations as a service as well. So how does this fit in with Meter?
Mm. It's all because we need to make sure that we can provide the SLA. And part of it is for us as a vendor to take over the design and the deployment piece. So with Meter, all customers have a project manager and a couple of designers that work with them afterwards. So these are all Meter employees. And it's not a service that we charge extra. I know obviously some of the vendors, if you pay them enough money, they can actually do so. Their costs are very prohibitive, so not a lot of people can actually afford this. And we design the network and we configure it based on the vendor best practices, because out of the gate, we need to make sure that the network is operating as we promised. And this actually makes my job quite interesting, because obviously previously, when I've worked at other vendors, part of my role was to scope a bill of materials and start discussing with customers on what they can afford and where they need the Wi-Fi and the switching and etc., and try to kind of compromise between what they get and the cost that they pay. With Meter, all that goes away. If the customer is happy with the price per square foot or square meter, that then goes into our operations and our design team, which will work. It takes us about like 4 to 6 weeks to get a network up and running, and we'll design, get that validated from the customer, get the configurations up and running. Half of them actually are already done automatically out of the gate, and then the network kind of is marked live. And this is where the billing starts. And one of the good things that I don't need to worry about is licensing, because before it was, when does the license take, where does it expire, what happens afterwards, what happens if you have multiple sites and the licenses have to combine. All that kind of goes away. The billing starts when the site is marked live. And that also means that for customers who have a distributed environment, if they want some economy of scale and sign up multiple sites with Meter, if it takes them, 3, 6, 9 months to get them all up and running, it doesn't really matter, because they're not going to suffer financially.
Okay. And coming back to the outcome, so we're trying to make sure that everybody has a proficiently configured, it's performant and available network. The traditional method is that if it goes wrong, the customer realizes it goes wrong, the customer phones up or tries to get on a web chat with the vendor, and they wait. And you're lucky if you get a response within 2 to 4 hours with most of the vendors. So you're looking at a more proactive delivery of support, mainly because it's your equipment and you can actually see it. So how does that affect the outcome for the client?
That's very important. I mean, based on some of the feedback I got from customers, is that, depending on the vendor that you use, you might want or might not really want to be able in a position to call them up, especially when it comes to escalations and being able to wait for like even days at an end to get a resolution. So part of the things that we do is that we're trying, especially with things that are critical, like devices going down or links going down, to automatically trigger support cases and support engineers to start having a look and even reaching out to you with a resolution or with a fix even before you see it having an issue. A good example here would be the fact that we deploy some access points as observers to pretty much run tests, even if nobody's on the Wi-Fi network. And if things go really wrong, we'll actually be able to use that data to troubleshoot things very fast. And again, in a lot of cases, to already know about it even before things go wrong.
Okay. And coming back to the start, we talked about lack of innovation in networking. I know there's a big drive within Meta to utilize AI in a lot of ways. Can you give us a couple of examples how AI can be used by someone who's maybe a network novice to be able to understand what's happening with the network and also maybe do some configuration?
Yes, I mean, I'm a bit conscious that everybody uses the word AI, and at this point,
Yeah.
people might be like, "Oh, this is where the marketing pitch comes in." I think I was quite pleasantly surprised that when I joined Meter, the AI models that we had are already running, and anybody could use them. Our approach to AI is that we don't want our model to be big. We don't want our model to be complex. We just want our model to know networking concepts and meter. Because whenever people use the AI part, which we call command, I'm sure it will resonate with my command, the Verkala command, right? We want it to be very fast, and we don't want it to make stuff up as well. Three main use cases I see externally. One, when it comes to troubleshooting. So yes, you can use logs and have a dashboard full of those things, but you can simplify it by pretty much typing in just in regular language, what's wrong with this, what's wrong with that, and you then get information and even some tips on how to, where the issues might lie. Secondly, when it comes to creating custom dashboards, because again, in previous lives, no matter how many dashboards you have as a vendor, you always have people wanting to see things and display them in their own way. Obviously, we do have APIs, so feel free to use them if you really want to integrate this in other systems and do things yourself. But if you're in a position where you don't really know any software developers or you don't have the budget, you can actually create these dashboards and share them with any other admins. They might be, again, technical people or even non-technical people as well. And then you brought to the important part of the configuration aspect, because you can actually use this to configure things in plain language. Hopefully, in the next session, we'll be able to show some of those things again so people can understand and see how these things work. But it's actually very important that even us internally, we use this AI to make the rollout faster. So throughout the customer engagements, right? We engage with customers over email, over Zoom, etc., Teams. All those records and all that big data actually gets fed in command. So when networks get deployed, the information is kind of already there, aggregated by the AI. So it means that not only the rollout is faster, but then if things break, the engineer might just be the first day on the job. The AI will already tell them, this is the network, that's what it looks like, this is how it's configured, etc. So there is that play in which we want to give AI to the end users to be able to scale with limited resources and without having CCA type knowledge, but also AI internally to allow us as a company to scale and deliver our services faster and better.
Okay. I'm conscious of time because we're coming up to 25 minutes. We were trying to stick to 15 to 20 minutes, but next time, which will be 2:30 next Tuesday, we're going to talk more in depth. We're going to show some of those AI capabilities and give people a better understanding of what they get when they get Meter and what it looks like. We'll also give them an idea of how you could actually manage across multiple sites as well. So give people a good view of that. But first of all, I'd like to make sure people have got your details. So if you want to look at the Meter website, just to get some basic information, there's the Meter website. And then here is Dimi's connection details on LinkedIn. Please feel to have a look and also connect with Dimi if you want to make contact. But again, you can also contact us, Lee Cassidy at tactiletechnology.com, and we can provide information. And if it looks like it's something for you, we'd be very keen to get an introduction call together using Dimi and the other guys at Meter to explain what you'd get out of it, so you can get some understanding of the benefits of going down this utility route of networking rather than buying hardware and licensing it and all the other challenges you might face. And like I say, over the next few weeks, we should be giving you more information to understand what the difference are between the Meter offering and a traditional approach to networking. Thank you very much, Dimi, for joining us today. It's been great to see you again, and I look forward to our next sessions.
Yeah, see you next week, Lee.
All right, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.